Let's try another problem where you have to use multiplication or division of fractions to solve it. If you need to pause the video to write down this problem right here, go ahead and do that now. All right, I always read my problem twice. First time to get the gist of it. Corey is training for cross country. He wants to run 3 3/4 miles today. He is 3/5 of the way through his run. How far has he already run? How much farther does he need to run? Okay, the next time I'm going to work on understanding the problem, figuring out what is my question and what information do I know. Corey is training for cross country. He wants to run 3 3/4 miles. I want to keep those units. And he is 3/5 of the way. He's gone 3/5 of the way. How far has he already run? There's one question. And also, how much farther does he need to run? I have two questions. So now I have said, what are the questions and what information do I know? Now I need to plan. The only key word I have in here is of. Now this is the kind of problem, it's not going to help as much to do total number of groups and number in each group. It's going to help you to think of 3/5 of the way. How far is the way? It's 3 3/4. So what we are doing here is we want to find 3/5 of 3/4. This means times. 3/5 times 3 3/4. So that's going to be 3/5 times 15/4. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 more is 15. Now, I can simplify this before I multiply. So this is 3 times 5, so I can cross out the 5s, and I get 9/4. If I change that improper fraction to a mixed number, 4 goes into 9 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8, so that leaves me with 1/4 left over. And of course, I want to include my units, 2 1/4 miles. Now, I think I've solved it, so I want to check and see, have I answered the question? Well, what did I answer? I answered how far he has already run. But I haven't answered all of the question. There's another question I have to find. So with this one, I'm going to use farther as a keyword. So how much farther does he need to run? Okay, he started with 3 3/4 miles, and he has already run 2 1/4 mile. And I'm going to subtract those because farther reminds me I'm going to subtract. So he's gone 2/4 over here, 1 2/4 miles. Now for my answer, I'm going to want to simplify that and say 1 1/2 miles. And so that one is going to answer this question. Now let's see if I have answered my question. I've answered both of them now. Does my answer make sense? Let's look. 2 1/4 plus 1 1/2. If I added those together, that ought to give me this thing that I started with, the 3 3/4, shouldn't it? But I already knew this was 1 2/4. I can even do that one in my head. 2 1/4 plus 1 2/4, that gives me 3 3/4. Now, the other thing I can do to make sure it makes sense, 3/5 of the way is more than halfway through his run. Look, 2 1/4 is more than this. So he's gone more than halfway. He has less than halfway to go. And so, yes, I've done this, I've done this. I answered both questions, and my answer makes sense. You could have had a question that didn't say this part. What if we didn't say, how far has he already run? If it says, how much farther does he need to run? Then at the end, you would come up with 2 1/4 miles and say, did I answer the question? You would say, wait, no, I've only found out how far he's already run. I still need to know how much farther he needs to run. So don't just automatically assume that you have answered the question. Look at what the question's looking for and see if that's really what you came up with.